Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects. I'm your host, Kobe Manzo. Kicking off this offseason the right way. We had a great episode last week with Kyle Sheets. We've got two more great guests that'll be joining me here tonight. Mike Snyder, the athletic director from Pacific Lutheran. The squad we talked a lot about last week in terms of their name, image, and likeness deals for those guys over there on the West Coast. And then Sammy Edwards, the man under center for the Valdosta State Blazers down there in Titletown. He finished third place in the Harlon Hill voting this year. He had quite the phenomenal year, Trev. He was fun to watch.
Yes.
That's where you chime in.
Yeah, I just, I don't have a ton to add.
That's okay. That's okay. But otherwise, tonight we are going to kind of jump around a little bit. We've got a Division II playoff coach who made it to the quarterfinals this past year and has had a lot of success at the Division II level over at Lenoir, Rhyne. He's taking a job going to an FCS squad that just made their first playoff berth potentially in their school's history. Their squad's on the rise. We're not talking too much right now, but we'll get into that in a little bit. We also have two Division III transfers, offensive and defensive line respectively, going from Division III to Power 5 football. UCLA and North Carolina picking up some big-time transfers.
We'll talk about it more, but it's just very surprising, especially like the position they
in the
play.
Trenches.
Yeah.
That's where people talk about, like, you always see, what's the biggest difference from D3, D2 to FCS, and people talk about, yeah, you're going to find some dudes at skill positions that can go and play just about wherever. Yeah. But they always say the line play is kind of what differentiates.
Yeah, exactly. Even I remember that's what Deion Sanders said, too, like going from coaching FCS, because Jackson State's FCS, right?
I believe so, yes.
Going up to
SWAC.
Yeah. Then going up to Colorado, he said the biggest difference is the trenches. And even his son said that, too.
Yep. Yeah,
he said the same thing.
You're right. So I'm very curious to dive into that a little bit more, and we will. Finally, though, we have some small school products landing on UFL rosters. 40-plus players from Division II, Division III, and NAI, respectively. There's a few community college JUCO guys as well, but we don't really cover that within our realm and our sphere over here. A lot of guys getting opportunities in the United Football League, which, if you had not noticed, the XFL and the USFL have merged into the UFL. A lot of FLs, none of them Florida, actually. But this merger is big for both leagues because now they don't compete with each other, and I'm excited to talk about it a little bit later. And I think the best part about it is there's a lot of guys from small school football getting real opportunities. They had a dispersal or dispensal draft. I'm going to figure out the word choice later, but very interesting. A lot of stuff we'll cover later. If you want to get right to any of those guest conversations or any of those topics I just talked about on YouTube, timestamps, video chapters, bottom of the screen, fast forward to any part of the episode you'd like. Likewise, same for Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, wherever you're listening, all those timestamps, will be in the description. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Over 1K now. A lot of great things planned for this offseason. Otherwise, follow us on the socials. Be up to date with everything D1R. We appreciate you. We'll get right into that conversation with Sammy Edwards to kick things off. Joining the show tonight, the signal caller for one of the nation's best passing attacks, the Super Region 2 Offensive Player of the Year. The only thing better than the air raid down in Titletown is the flow on this man's head. Repping the Bulls, it's Sammy Edwards. What's up, fella?
What's up, man?
Man, just here admiring, man. It looks good. It looks good. How long did it take you to get that growing up?
I think it hasn't taken me too long, a year or two.
Okay.
Usually keep it pretty long, so kind of maintain it, but don't cut it short too often.
Just enough so it like sneaks out the back of the helmet, right? I feel like that's always the play.
Right, yeah. I was a former lacrosse guy, so lettuce is what it's called. It's a big
That makes
thing,
sense.
so.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's like that definitely came over from hockey. My brother's a big hockey guy, so I think that that lingo kind of has transcended a little bit into that lax realm a little bit. But what'd you play in lacrosse?
I was a midfielder.
Okay. I can see that. I like it. Now, hell of a football player too, by the way. I'm sure a lot of people have figured that one out. And, just talking about your progression, I mean, let's jump right into it, dude. You look at your season as a whole as someone who, I got to watch you a good bit this year, but before this year, I didn't know who the hell you were. I think a lot of people were probably in that same boat. You've burst onto this national scene as in Division II football out of really nowhere. And you complete 6 passes in 2021, 1 in 2022, and now you complete 326, and you've thrown for over 4,000 yards. How do you, over the course of those couple years, man, one, just keep the faith, right, and keep the confidence in that, I can be the guy, and it might not be now. It might not even be a year from now, but eventually I'm going to have my moment, and I'm going to take advantage of that. How do you do that?
Yeah, so freshman year came in. Goff, I came in with Gary Goff. He was there in 2021. he kind of sat me down and told me they needed a second string, and he said I would have a chance to compete. But that was before I knew they had a kid called Ivory Durham that could throw the ball 75 yards and probably run the
Yes.
4.5. So that was kind of hard to beat coming out of high school. But didn't redshirt at all. Got a decent bit of playing time my freshman year just because we did go to the Natty that year and we were putting up some good points on people. So I got some time towards the end of the game. 2022 wasn't really the case. Went 5-6. Wasn't a good season. So you said I had one pass attempt, first down, by the way, 3rd and 4, I think. So
there you go.
Pretty good percentages.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I saw growth and development waiting 2 years. And I mean, nowadays with the transfer portal, you don't see that often. I just saw value in sitting behind Ivory, and I think he was a good kid. And I wasn't mad that I wasn't starting or anything like that. So I think those 2 years really made me hungry for my opportunity, and I think those 2 years kind of made me into the guy I am today.
Totally. Wouldn't have it any other way, especially looking back at a season that you did just have. But it is interesting you talk about Ivory, and a guy that I've seen play a little bit, and the only time I've seen him play is in the national stage, right? Because they're able to, they as in this program, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but able to just remain on the national stage. How was it, though, being behind a guy like that in which, correct me if I'm wrong, but your play style is definitely a little bit different. You talk about the athleticism, and not to say that you're lacking in that area at all, but just talk about a dude that is just a freak when it comes to the measurables and some of those things that he was able to do on the football field. What was it like being behind him, looking at that game and kind of adapting it to your own? Because if you go out there and try to be the next Ivory Durham, it's not going to work out, right? You have to be the one and only Sammy Edwards. So talk about that process.
Right, yeah. The dude's super electric. Whatever he does, he could throw the ball 70, run a 4.5, and super shifty. He's a good kid, though. Our play styles are definitely a little different. I think he spins the ball a lot better than I do. I think, I really kind of adapted my game to more of the mental side. I think I really advanced in knowing football and kind of getting to know my opponent. And I think I win off the field more than I win on the field. I think I take that to heart. I'm not saying that he didn't, but, I can't get by, running out of the pocket and scrambling for 70. So.
And is it tough playing the mental game, because when you're the starter, right, coming into the year, and you're going week by week and you're prepping for the opponent, right, and you go out on Saturday, and now here you go, you can see if all that prep amounted to literally anything or if it blows up in your face and it just was not anything. Now being the backup, though, is a different case, because you're still going through a lot of the same prep work. You're sitting in all the same meetings with your coach and probably coming in on your own with a couple of those other guys and breaking down film. But you don't get that immediate feedback on Saturday of, is this enough prep? Am I doing things correctly? You're not getting that response from the other team because you're not having the chance to go out there and showcase that. I think, again, just goes back to keeping the faith. How did you adjust kind of your preparation style heading into this year, and how has it grown in the last couple of years?
Yeah, so those 2 years as a backup quarterback, I don't think anybody kind of realizes how hard of a job that is. You're kind of a guy walking that line. You want to be prepared because anything can happen, but at the same time, you get to week 7 and haven't played a snap. It's kind of like, this is getting old. It's not very fun. But yeah, I mean, it's just a complete 180 from the past 2 years to this year, and I'd leave no doubt when preparing. I think I take that very seriously. And I mean, the GSC is no joke. So coming week in and week out, they're going to throw something different at you. I'm sure I'll get a lot of different stuff this year just because of the success I had last year on the field. But yeah, I'll always love challenging myself in that part of the game.
Coach Jackson said it was the best conference in the country. We had him on here, and he said that with a lot of conviction, man. What have your impressions been of the conference and of your head coach, the man at the helm of this program that is obviously 1 year away from the playoffs? You guys are right back into the thick of it.
Yeah, the GSC is no joke. We have, I think, I read a stat or something, I could be wrong, but, more than one team, more than 2 teams that made the GSC playoffs or made the playoffs for the GSC. For however many years. But, I think good players come out of the GSC. I mean, we're in the South, so you're going to have a lot of athletes being recruited there.
For sure.
And, I've known countless people from West Florida like Austin and, Delta like Patrick. I respect those guys a lot. And I think they're They play real sound football in the GSC. I don't think people give it much credit just because it's hard to see a D2 school as a school with good coaching, but I mean,
especially when you are surrounded by a ton of top tier FBS talent down there, right? And I think that's
right.
What some other leagues, especially when you look at maybe some of the lower, like a Division III, I think it was a great example, super prominent along the East Coast. West Coast, not nearly as much, but East Coast, a ton of great D3 schools up in there. And yeah, there's totally FBS squads that are great in that region, but especially you get into the like Northeast region, that's small school territory in there, man. It just it means more in those kind of areas. So it's interesting to be in a market like you guys and a lot of the Gulf South teams share, where you're not the favorite in the area. You might not even be number 2, but you're still playing like damn good football. That's tough.
Yeah, it's funny to see, which school will find that D1 guy that's floating around, and it's like a FBS Power 5 receiver, and you're like, how did he get there? And he kills
yes.
you and gives you 100 or something like that. But it's all
hey, my boy, like you don't belong here. I don't know what what convinced you otherwise, or what kind of circumstance led to it. I've played with those guys. I've played against them. It's much better when they're on your sideline, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think now that we got 12-2, we've got some of those transfers. So that's a good change, a speed for that. So, yeah, and in terms of Coach Jack, I believe in everything he does. I think he's a super energetic, super, a guy with conviction. And I think you need that. And, to the public, I think he can seem, a little over the top or a little exuberant, but that's just his personality. And I wouldn't change it for the world. And, he might see random, but I think he does everything for a reason. If you sit down and talk to him, you'll understand that he does things that you couldn't even see weeks or days into the future, and he's already planning that out. He plans things, further advanced than anybody, and he plays mind games. He's like a Jedi. So
that's dope.
He'll kind of every new guy that kind of comes in doesn't understand that he's doing that for a reason. He's trying to get the best out of you, and if he doesn't and you don't like that, then you weren't good for us anyway. So it's kind of funny watching him getting on to the new guys and realizing that he did that to me at first. And that there is no one above the law either. He'll cuss my ass out with no hesitation. So
2 things. First, that was a hell of a promo you just cut. I love it. And 3 things. I lied. 3 things. 2, the word choice, on par, exuberant. I think it's a great word to describe him. And you talk about that emotion, and almost just wearing the emotions right on your sleeve. Like, you can see how this dude feels. And it's relatable because there are people that are very guarded in the way that they act, the way they express their emotions. You can't quite get a read on them. From what little I've seen from your head coach, you know exactly how he's feeling at any given point, and he's very straightforward about that. A black and white guy, and I can certainly appreciate that, having been coached by guys similar in that nature. But the last thing is, what color lightsaber would Coach Jack have if he were a Jedi? This is an important question. There's a lot riding on this.
It is an important question. I might give him the Sith category. I think he likes being the villain a little too much sometimes. I'm gonna be honest. I think he likes being the villain. I think
that's not where I was expecting.
Role. So I'd have to give him red. He takes that role and he loves it. So I'll give that to him.
The Sith. That's badass. Yeah. Fallen Jedi down in Titletown.
Yep.
That sounds like a spinoff. It's like Marvel or like Disney will pick that up, dude.
Yeah, we can make a movie out of that for sure.
They might. But let's talk about Titletown a little bit, right? And you get that name for a reason, and that's competing at the highest level for a very long time, going through and looking at the stats. You talk about your losing season in 2022, 5-6. Anywhere else? Hey guys, it sinks. We got next year. When you're at a place like Valdosta, and I go through and I look at the schedule all the way back to 2010, which is where it stops, by the way, at least on the website. I didn't go and try and do any further research. I couldn't find another losing season. You guys haven't had another one in the last decade. And that's something that program, that culture has been instilled long before either you or Coach Jackson got there. And the fact that you're able to withstand that and uphold that kind of just trajectory as a program is wild. Especially, you had that losing season, and it feels like, I would assume, from your perspective. Everyone just writes you off in the offseason because you talk about the Gulf South, powerhouses like West Florida and Delta State that are competing for that GSC championship and a berth to the national championship. Coming into this year, it had to feel like you guys were an afterthought after just one losing season. Just everyone was just so quick to write you guys off in the conference and on the national stage.
Yeah, I think that's what motivated us. You know, the guys who did decide to stay from that season, it wasn't many. But, you know, guys like me who didn't play still, you know, had a bad taste in our mouth from that season. It's, you know, that 5-6 season kind of, you thought we kicked every puppy in town. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's not normal in Valdosta. That's how it was.
We can't gloss over that. That was gold. No, that was gold. I've not heard that one before. I feel bad for Coach
Jackson too, because you know it's just we had so much support from the boosters, and it's automatically like you don't have much money being gifted to you as as normal as it was.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just I think that was the leading factor to our success, and I think my big thing in just staying here for 2 years and kind of keeping the faith, like you said, like Coach Jackson says, was I got here and the culture of Valdosta State football really attracted me. Watching guys like Rogan Wells and even Dusty Bonner, Lance Funderburg, or HJ, all those guys. It's just it was awesome to kind of be able to kind of restore some of that and some of what those quarterbacks and some of those guys have built for Valdosta State. And I think walking up and down that hallway and seeing those names on those boards, I think that's why a part of what I do, why I do it is just kind of restoring that culture in Valdosta State. So the good and the bad, I think it's gotten us to where we're at now.
And you've done it, pal. You've done it. There's a very select list of guys that throw for 4K plus and do it in a conference and with a schedule like you guys had. And you talk about, I played some NAIA teams. Well, that NAIA team, one of them that you played went on to go win the national championship. So that's not so bad of a win in my book. And, looking at that and kind of just looking back at and reflecting on this season, you go and you're a Harlon Hill finalist and you're third in the voting behind a guy in Zabrowski that just put up video game numbers, and the reigning Harlon Hill winner and John Matoka, and you're right on that category. It's obviously to me, it's not like 1, 2, 3. It was 1A, 1B, 1C, and that I think that's how it felt for a lot of people. And so now, I guess the question for me is, 2 years that you've had, and you maybe didn't have as much to go on and reflect in this offseason. You talk about yourself being someone who's very focused predominantly in that mental side of the game and preparing for opponents long before you step in between the white lines. Now having a whole season's worth of film and, more importantly, of some mistakes that I'm sure there are some plays that you want back. How do you take the next step moving into 2024?
Yeah, there's always things to work on. I'm super hard on myself. I think that's a good quality to have. So there's plenty of things I can improve on, whether it's accuracy or just better understanding situations, because I think, this year did a lot for me in that aspect. I think I had to take some hard lessons on the field when I wasn't fully prepared in that
for sure
situation. So, yeah, I mean, there's always something to improve on, whether it's getting bigger or stronger too. We had a 14, 15-week season, and I wasn't the heaviest guy, so taking hits at 185 doesn't necessarily feel too good. So towards the end of the season, kind of broke down a little bit. So, just focus on getting bigger, stronger, faster. So, yeah, should be fun.
I hear you, man. And I had to double check. The Bulls hat caught me off guard. You're a Florida guy.
I am, yeah.
Care to explain?
St. Augustine, Florida, man. It's right under Jacksonville. It's right on the beach.
I mean, I'm talking the Bulls. You just like the look, or that's your squad?
Oh, yeah, Chicago. So my dad's a Bulls fan.
Okay.
He was with the Jordan era. So yeah, I guess I got that from him. We're not as good anymore, but that's my NBA team. I kind of hold. So
that's dope. I literally just on my other monitor, I pulled it up. I was like, I swear this dude was not. I'm like, he's from Florida. Like, he is not.
Yeah, it's odd. It's odd, man.
I love it, man. I love it, man. Sammy, but I'm excited for you guys, man. A lot of great stuff still to come from this squad, and the buy-in from guys like you that have stuck it out. I think that's got to be a big part of this squad too. And if I'm not mistaken, you add in some talent from the transfer portal. It's not like you're just totally opposed to it, but it feels like this team's trajectory is definitely in the hands of guys who have been there for multiple years and have endured, right?
Right. Yeah. We got our core guys who have been there, core guys who just joined us. And I think we really have instilled a culture with the season we had last year. And, it's kind of my first time being a part of making that culture and kind of adding new guys from the transfer portal and getting them to buy into what we do and kind of not accepting what they do, kind of getting that out of their system and joining us rather than making it a new team. So I'm really interested to see how that goes.
I like that. I haven't really heard it phrased in that way before, but that's exactly how it is, right? When somebody comes in with certain habits or certain ways of doing things, you're either going to conform to whatever that is, or you're going to make them adapt and conform to what you guys already have in place. And that's a reflection of your culture. If you have a strong culture and you have a strong group of personalities and people with pride in that locker room, whether it be coaches and mostly players, student athletes on that team, you'll have guys come in and buy in to whatever it is that you're selling or you're preaching there on campus. But vice versa, if that culture is pretty weak and doesn't stand up to some of that, and you have a strong personality come in from the portal, all of a sudden, like you said, it is a different team. And it might not be a totally different roster, but now all of a sudden things change. And that's a very good way of phrasing it, dude. I'm excited to see what happens for you guys in 2024. Long way until then. But appreciate you joining me tonight, Sammy.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good one, dude.
All right, you too.
See ya. Back from the conversation with Sammy. Appreciate him hopping on, talking a little bit of ball. We've had a couple guys from that squad, Valdosta now, and that stat, Trav, that I talked about in the interview with him. But going back through their records, right, I go back to 2010. That last season in 2022, the first losing season they've had in over a decade down there in Titletown. So
this is, I mean,
that's incredible.
It really is.
That is incredible. Through multiple head coaches and starting quarterbacks and coordinators and all the changes in college football to have that kind of sustained success is very impressive. And a man that has done that is Mike Jacobs at Lenoir Rhyne. And formerly Lenoir Rhyne, I should say. As you see here, those are not the colors of the Bears. He's rocking the orange of Mercer football, which I do believe is also a bear.
They are the.
So he keeps the mascot. It's got to be comforting.
Must be.
Pretty cool, though. He has taken the job from a perennial contender in Division II football at Lenoir Rhyne. In 4 years, he was 32-9 at the helm, the 780 .780, whatever you say, winning percentage. That's the third highest by a head coach in Lenoir Rhyne history. He led the Bears to a national semifinal, Super Region 2 championship this past year, along with the SAC and Piedmont Division championship. And 2 out of the 4 years, he went to the playoffs, also captured a share of the Piedmont Division in 22, and they finished the year, the regular season, ranked number 4 nationally, tied a program record 13 wins. There's a lot of stuff to hang your hat on.
I mean,
and that's how you get a job like this, right?
Exactly.
Man. We talk about guys. Oh, go ahead.
I think you'll probably mention it shortly, but Mercer made the playoffs too, didn't they?
They did. And that's why it's a really interesting kind of gig and a jump, because you talk about players making that jump all the time. I think it has become pretty commonplace for these, especially lower level Division ones. It's not a shot at Mercer, they're just an FCS squad. These lower level Division ones to come through and poach talent at the D2 level. Tavion McCarthy, NMU to Mercer, has a great year defensive. I mean, that's just a prime example of that. But we don't see coaches do this very often. No. Especially to a team that has just made the playoffs at the FCS level.
So, I don't know if you know this. Did the other coach get let go? Or did he find a new opportunity? Did you find that out at all?
That is I
don't even know who their head coach was.
That is a great question. We're gonna find out right now.
Because this is kind of interesting, making the playoffs, and I mean, I'm sure
that's what. Okay, I did end up seeing this. So, Drew Kronick, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. He resigned to take the offensive coordinator job with Navy.
Oh well,
yeah, because
he's going up.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
But if you remember, I believe the former, I don't know if it was the OC or if it was one of the other offensive personnel, is now the head coach at Carson Newman, a Division II squad. So there's a very weird love triangle going. I don't know what the hell you know what I mean? Yeah. I believe it was the former offensive coordinator, could be, but someone from Navy, because they talked about the triple option and the style of offense he's bringing to Carson Newman, which should be exciting for them.
Huh, that's weird. Did you see, speaking of Navy, their old head coach, drawing a blank on his name?
San Jose State, correct?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw that too, kind of.
Yeah. No,
he said he's not running the triple option there, though, which is pretty crazy.
He's going to switch up.
He's going to switch
At San
up.
Jose State. Why would he do that?
I don't know. That's why I wanted to mention
That had to have been a condition of his job, like him getting the job?
Maybe. I don't know. Because he made it like they had it for forever at Navy, but like he really like evolved it, and now he's not going to run it at San Jose State, which I thought was pretty crazy.
Very interesting. Here's the actual clip from Mercer football. The moment that Coach Jacobs got announced, I'll play just a snippet of it so you guys can kind of get a reaction to that one.
The second thing I told you that I was proud of is that you were true professionals in this last 9 days. I think you trusted a lot of us to try to make the best decision. As I told you yesterday, I'm pretty confident we made the best decision. And so without further ado, to our next football coach, Mike Jacobs.
I hope you understand just how privileged I am to stand in front of you guys. And I certainly empathize with you. You know, when I was a player, I wasn't a great player, but we had a coaching change from after my 4th season going into my 5th season. So I've been in that chair, and I've had the changeover and kind of the uncertainty. So I get where you're coming from. So the big thing for me,
A lot of random apparel on these guys.
you guys will learn.
Did you see the Jets shirt?
NASA.
Right, this is going to be a partnership. We're going to work our butts off. We're going to win a bunch of football games as a group together.
Kneecaps.
But we're going to do it in a manner that makes sure that you have the best college experience in the country while we win a bunch of games. Because, like I said, this thing will not.
You know, nothing ridiculous. He's not coming in and not taking any notes out of Dan Campbell's book there.
No,
but
no.
again, you just don't see this very often. A guy that inherits a winning program like Mercer. There's a lot of guys now that are going to get more professional looks because of that. And now you see what happens with the portal there. Are we going to see a mass exodus from a squad like that? All these things kind of
It'll be
play a factor
interesting
there.
to see if any Lenoir Rhyne players will be playing at Mercer next year.
Yeah, and follow him because they had a lot of really talented athletes on that squad. And that's where I agree
You would
with
think
you. It
a
gets
couple.
very
You would think
interesting.
a
Absolutely.
couple.
And you look at a very similar situation, albeit not as prominent of a Division I program. Coach from Pittsburgh State takes the NAU job. Yeah,
Northern Arizona.
Yeah, Northern Arizona. Acronyms were not working for me for a second. And he poaches a couple of the best players remaining from that Pittsburgh State squad. Colby Katz is a name that played wide receiver for them, and now he's following him to Lumberjacks to go play Division I ball, and he was a stud for them, for the Gorillas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting to see that. Always have mixed feelings about, like, poaching those guys, but at the end of the day, like, they have a relationship with that coach. They trust that coach.
They committed to that. A lot of those guys committed to that coach. Like,
yeah, not exactly the university as a whole.
Some guys don't commit to the university. They commit to the coaches that are in place.
Yeah, and then there's good and bad to that,
Right,
Because coaching and the stability of the profession is so fickle. There's just not the stability at all, and it's such a what is it? It's a result-driven industry,
yeah,
right? 100%.
I mean, it's like, I mean, yeah, you said it perfectly, I think.
Thank you. We'll talk about two guys who have gotten a lot of results at their respective levels. The first one, right here from Johns Hopkins University, Luke Schuerman. Look at where he's ending up, Trev.
I just find that insane.
From playing defensive line at Division III Johns Hopkins, he has just committed to go play for the Bears, the Golden Bears, I do believe, correct?
Technically, yes.
At UCLA, man. That's incredible
Wait,
stuff.
UCLA? No, they're the Bruins.
The Bruins, sorry. I'm off.
Oh, that's Cal, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, you're right. So that's
hopefully
a bad
no
mix-up.
UCLA fans are listening.
But either way, man, to go and to be able to make this jump as a guy we talked about in the trenches, right? This is really impressive and something that I think a lot of people were surprised by. Again, I don't think many people were surprised by his announcement maybe to jump in the portal after a lot of the accolades that he's gained. And you talk about some of the stuff on that list. This guy was a finalist for the William V. Campbell Trophy, which is college football's award that annually recognizes it's an individual, that has the absolute best in the nation for combined academic success, football performance, and exemplary leadership. So basically, you're just an all-American dude.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of guy that Luke is apparently.
It'd be interesting to see, like, when he entered the portal, I wonder if, like, what he expected, like, you would think coming from D3, did he expect to get Power 5 offers? Like,
I'd love to. We should get him on here. I would
be
love
awesome,
to ask
yeah.
that question.
Because, like, I don't know. And you're coming from a D3. Granted, he was coming from a good D3, but it's still Division III football.
Mhm.
It's like, I don't know. You might think, okay, go up D2 or maybe FCS or even like a group of 5 school, but like he's going to a Big Ten school now.
I would say, yeah, Big Ten. That sounds weird, but you're right. It sounds weird. And what might actually be even more interesting is to speak to the position coach or the recruiting coach that brought him on. One, how the hell did you find this dude?
Yeah.
Right? Is this somebody that over the year you get a tip from some kind of connection or some type of scout or something that, hey, this guy.
I mean, there's got to be
like,
a connection somehow.
There has to. You
You
don't just randomly fall upon a Blue Jay at Johns Hopkins. I don't think.
You wouldn't think. Yeah. There's got to be some sort of connection.
Man. That would be very interesting, though, to see, one, how do you come across a guy like this? And then two, how critical is the evaluation? Because obviously the disparity in talent that you're playing at UCLA compared to Johns Hopkins.
I mean, if they're offering him, he's got to be a dog.
Oh, no question. I'm not bringing that into question at all.
It must be like, I have never seen his film, but it must be like he looks like a man amongst boys.
I was about to say that, bro. Man amongst boys. That's exactly what I was going to say. And looking at his stats, I can at least tell you a little bit. He's listed at 6'4", 255. He's a senior. So
that's good size. I mean,
it's a good frame. Nothing ridiculous that jumps out at you, but again, he was at D3. So you kind of get why.
I mean,
right?
that's big for D3.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
and a guy that can move too. Like, this is not a lumbering. Like, he's incredibly athletic from what I've seen of him. And you look at, he's got a good frame. And looking at the stats from these last couple of years here, and 2023 in particular, he had 55 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks. So certainly had production. It wasn't anything, I don't know, record-breaking kind of
but
deal.
I'm sure, I mean, if he's been good for a couple of years, I'm sure like he's getting double teamed on every.
Oh, absolutely.
He's getting a tight end chipping off of him. He's getting running back and a tackle just designated to him.
Yeah, so that just talking about that, right? Because you would assume that the year prior to this was a very productive one. People kind of understand. Yeah, last year, 26.5 tackles for loss and 14 sacks.
Yeah, exactly.
And this year, they're like, we fucking know who you are, buddy.
Yeah.
You're getting triple team.
Yeah, he still had 10 sacks. 9.5, but that's 10 sacks.
Oh, dude. Yeah, that's wild. He's also got couple pass deflections, 5 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery in his career. He's accumulated almost 200 tackles for the Blue Jays over there. And yeah,
I mean, that's legit.
That's the season before, you're right, is definitely that's the bar of, hey, you did this last year. We know exactly what's coming. You still can't stop it. It's legit. Kudos.
And when you have to game plan for a D lineman offensively, that's
a problem.
That's usually a problem. I mean,
someone who's that disruptive, you have to go out of your way to kind of maneuver around or center your scheme. That's bad. That's bad news bears. But when you have a guy like Zach Greenberg on your offensive line, these two played this year. If you remember, the miracle at Muhlenberg, I don't know if that rings a bell, the last-second field goal from Johns Hopkins that was batted and ran into the end zone. These two played against each other and now are going to play Division I football, and I don't think they'll play each other per se, but here you have it, man. Zach Greenberg, he's going from Muhlenberg to the University of North Carolina.
That's sweet.
The Tar Heels, man.
That's really sweet.
That was what is really cool to me.
Do you think these guys just picked like where they wanted to commit based on the color scheme? Because they both were, they did a great job.
Muhlenberg is red and gray, red and black.
Yeah.
Johns Hopkins though has very similar like the.
But
blue
like these guys, like UCLA has great colors, and then UNC is just.
Agreed.
I mean, they have the best color scheme.
Question number one for them. But what's really cool about this is that unless they're barring some kind of injury or something that week, these two actually played against each other.
Yeah.
And so just imagine from a recruiting perspective and saying like, when they evaluate this guy, because obviously both these coaches at their respective schools are going through and watching just about every snap these guys have played at this level. You had to think somewhere in there like, who's this guy? He's going, what's
exactly?
This kid's legit. You know what I mean? So how does that feed into it? And I know a lot of kids use that as a little bit of a bump in recruiting to say, hey, this should be the first clip in your film if you know it's a dude that's going to go play Power 5. Like, that's showing that you belong there too. I wonder how much of that played into the process. These commitments came pretty close next to each other. See, this one was announced on January 15th. As far as Greenberg goes, he's a grad transfer, has 2 years eligibility left, which is big time for him.
That's big, especially. No, it's big for UNC.
It is. That's true. No, that's very true. And a couple of his other offers included ECU, Troy, UConn, some other FBS schools, but I don't believe he really started receiving Power 5 attention until UNC showed interest, which is interesting because, again, you get this attention from these group of 5 squads. That's all well and good. it really takes something more for one of these teams to take a look at you and then to follow up with you and eventually put that offer on the table. So again, I'd love to speak to both sides about what this recruiting process was like. And like you said, did you fucking expect this? Like, was this real?
That's what I would want to know. Like going in, did you think like it's gonna be Power 5 offers? And I don't know. Do you know what his size is? Like,
yeah. So he's listed at 6'4", 290.
Okay, so he's right at that.
Yep. It's got kind of the same. I think the same, but like, it's not
anything.
The numbers don't jump at
6'4" is, I mean,
for D1, that's
below average.
It is actually below average. Yeah,
that's
6'4",
about
290.
Because 6'4", 290 is about average for D2 football, I would say.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
So again, he's got to just be a dog to like be getting these offers.
Yes. So I mean, obviously he was an all-conference, also an all-region selection this past year. Also on the academic honor roll.
Way to go!
Good shit, Zach.
Academic weapon.
Student athlete. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things have he's done his work, and it's hard to evaluate offensive linemen. I got the stats page pulled up here. Would you like to know what the stats say about him?
I mean, he's an offensive lineman.
There's no stats.
There's
no stats. So
that's a good thing, though.
Yeah, that's it. You're right. If it's like offensive linemen are like referees. If you know who they are, it's not a good thing.
Exactly.
You like them, they're just the guys doing their job.
Yeah. you either know offensive linemen when they're like at the top level, like the elite, like the 5 All-Pro offensive linemen in the NFL,
or the worst.
Or they're the worst, like the one guy for the Chiefs that always jumps off sides. Everyone knows his name, Taylor.
Yes. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. No, but again, just going back to overall, man, like this is really cool to see these D3 guys get these opportunities, get these chances, and it will be interesting to see, one, how they perform at the next level. Obviously, we'll be following these guys intently because I'm excited to see what kind of impact they make. And two, if this happens with more guys, this becomes more prevalent because right now, man, there are so many players leaving and entering different schools that, you know, a lot of these places are trying to figure out how they get an edge. And bringing in a guy from Division III, a Division II, an NAIA squad, you know these guys aren't going to take shit for granted. They're going to be there to work their ass off and to live out a dream for themselves.
Yeah, they're just like blessed for the opportunity. Like they're like so honored to even be there. Like,
and you look at a guy like Connor Neer is a great example. Last year, went to go play for Oklahoma after winning a national championship with Ferris State, and someone who, for him, didn't play a ton of meaningful snaps. They returned one of the best tacklers in the Big 12, I believe one of the leaders in the conference. But they added Neer because as a graduate transfer, whether it's D3, D2, NAI, wherever, he's bringing 4 years of football experience.
Exactly.
This is a very similar case here with Greenberg, who did miss one season due to a season-ending injury, He's played a lot of football, a lot of meaningful football in the playoffs as well. And when you bring that kind of experience to any kind of locker room in that position group, this could certainly be a case. I don't have it in front of me, but think about it, maybe an offensive line group that is just very young. And
I was just going to get to that point. Think about, kind of goes back to the whole transfer portal. As a coach, think about this. When you're at like the highest level of football for college, like you're at UNC, they're trying to make the playoffs, they're trying to win a national championship. Do you want to have a young player travel that's never played any meaningful snaps? Or if you can bring in a guy like that that's played for 4 years of college football, wouldn't you rather have that? And
that's the whole allure of the transfer portal, right?
Yeah, and I mean, then you have arguments for both. Is it better to develop your own player? I mean, there's going to be arguments, but it's kind of an interesting thing to talk about. And then you bring in another like guy that could be a potential leader.
Yes.
How much impact can he have on the younger kids or the younger players to become better linemen themselves?
That's where I see it more, is the off the field and in the locker room mentorship and just being around the guys like this, is that even if you do have a very talented young class, and I think that's why I brought up the Connor Neer situation.
Right.
A dude that, that leading tackler that they brought back in the Big 12 was like a freshman or sophomore. And the other linebackers in that room, that core of linebackers, all underclassmen. Yeah. So bringing in a guy with all that experience, like I said, Connor didn't play a ton of snaps at Oklahoma.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not saying anything bad about Connor. Like, I played against him. He's a great football player.
Yeah, he's a stud.
But some of those guys might be more talented than him physically.
Exactly.
But he has the playing experience that he can give them advice and explain how he would do things and help them.
His ceiling isn't necessarily as high as some of these other players because they're naturally potentially a little more gifted out of high school.
But a guy like that, it's like having another coach almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of
Hell
that
yeah.
thing. It's kind of that thing when like you sign a backup quarterback that's like old and can't play football anymore. But like, okay, I'll give an example. Teddy Bridgewater, he hasn't played a snap all year. Like he has no. He already said he's retiring after the year.
You did say that? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he already said he's like, I'm retiring. But
Or you bring in the salty vet, Joe Flacco.
well, yeah, that happens too.
Hey, and then the old dog learns a couple new tricks.
True.
He's learned a lot of them.
Or you got
He was sitting and shaking. Now he's rolling over.
or you got a guy like Chase Daniels that has never played
Yep.
but has made like $40
No.
million.
Journeyman.
Living the dream is what he's
That's
doing.
not bad. That's not bad.
I mean,
at all.
what could be better than that?
But before we get into talking about some small school products landing on UFL rosters, we'll cut to the conversation with Mike Snyder, the athletic director. That was a tough one. From Pacific Lutheran, talking about their deal with Open Doors and landing their athletes some NIL deals. Joining me tonight, the man at the helm of the athletic department over at Pacific Lutheran. He's a big reason why athletes there have capitalized on some NIL deals across the board. The man himself, Mike Snyder. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Excited to get you on here. You got a sweet little backdrop there. What is this? What is this room we're in?
Yeah, that's it's our conference room here in the athletics department. So it's a nice wall there with our loot in the background, and it's where we bring all of our recruits. Try to show it off a bit.
Okay. So let's stay on the lute for a second. You Google lute, and I see an instrument. It looks like a violin. It's not exactly a dragon or a bear. Maybe not the most intimidating of figures. The mascot is a knight, though. Sir Lancelot. Is it a play on the word? Yep.
Yep. You got it. So our actual guy or person in the costume you'll see at our games, the name is Lance Lute. You're right.
Okay.
So what that is so our history is we at one point we were a lot of different things. At one point we were I think the gladiators, and we did move into the knights, and so Lute though is a play off of the Lutherans. Like that was one of our old mantras.
Okay.
We were the Pacific Lutherans. But when folks say, what's a lute, the answer is I'm a lute. And it's funny what that means though, is like, so our core values run with that acronym. So leadership, unity, teamwork, excellence, and service. And so literally when we talk about what a lute is, we say it's anybody who embodies those sort of core values and qualities. And so we're not like a random bulldog or tiger or whatever you'd said. We're unique, and you have to be if you're going to encapsulate all those values.
Hell yeah. That's sweet. That's very cool. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot more people like me that poke fun at it, but there's a lot more there behind it. That's pretty cool, dude. How many times have you had to explain that?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few. Yeah. I mean, I've only been here for about 2.5 years, but
Okay.
I think it was I heard that first thing, that I'm a lute piece was my first opening convocation here in the fall, and one of our VPs stood up in front of the incoming class and said that, and I was like, man, I'm using that. I'm
awesome.
totally feeling that, and doubled down with all of our core values mixed into that.
2.5 years over there in Washington, not California, as I think I wrongly assumed, or I don't know where I saw that. I might have just been pulling that from who knows where. But let's talk about what you guys have going on over there in the NIL marketplace, your kind of partnership with Open Doors over there. And I think where I'll start this at is talk about your expectations. Obviously, being there 2.5 years, so you're there through this entire process, right? And the NIL deals being the top 1% was kind of all of the rhetoric heading into this. The Caleb Williams of the world, the Caitlin Clarks of the world, if you will, that are household names. Yeah, they're going to profit off of this because they're already nationally recognized brands in themselves, right? I think it may be a Dion quote. I don't remember. It's, I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. And that's like the best thing to summarize NIL in the world. We knew it was going to have an impact on the Power 5 schools. We knew there was going to be a little trickle down to FCS, maybe D2, but now all the way down to the Division 3 level. What were the expectations for you guys heading into all this?
Yeah, well, I think this actually starts prior to my arrival here at the last school I was the athletics director at, Illinois College, another D3 school in the Midwest. It's something that I was tracking on when I was there, my final semester, final year there. You start hearing a lot of the stuff percolating up, whether it was from the lawsuits and different conversations around name, image, and likeness. And, I was thinking about that, and I'm a very competitive guy. And I thought, okay, how are we going to take advantage of this? And what does this look like for us in our athletics department? And, in this realm of D3 NIL, one of the things that just kind of plays in my head is I've got a good friend of mine that works at Ohio State. And one day he and I were talking about the work that we do in our departments. and he's like, "Hey, we do the same thing." And I said, "You're crazy. You're at Ohio State. I'm in a D3." And he's like, "No, we do the same thing. It's just my budgets have a few more zeros." And so
That's good.
so
I like that.
so that kind of stuck with
Truthful.
me too, because I thought, yeah, I was like, well, this is going to be primarily, as you say, the part of the big schools, the Power Four now, and kind
Yeah,
of what
that's weird.
it looks
You're right.
like. But why not us? And if we can be an early adopter, maybe that helps us in a lot of different ways. And so fast forward into moving into the role here, I already had some contacts with the folks at Open Doors and a couple other businesses, and kind of comparing what's what. And I just found that what they provide for their platform and what they do, and I'm not going to make this an infomercial, but what they do for
Sure.
their platform and their support and just the what they do for our student athletes is awesome. And it was I felt the most robust offering out of the different groups I was talking with, and it's held true. I mean, we've got some great people we're working with over there, and they've been true partners the last couple of years.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and I was going to ask, a little bit obviously about that in the platform and Open Doors, but you answered a few of those bits already. And I had the chance to go down to Baltimore for the NCAA Student Athlete Leadership Forum this past year, and heard Charlie Baker speak down there, who had a lot of respect for him. It's the first time I heard him speak. Seems like a super just rational, just a dude. He just seems like a dude. And those are the kind of guys you want to have in charge of an organization like the NCAA, which is its own freaking governing body in itself. But anyway, the key takeaway from him regarding this whole landscape is the transparency or lack thereof in this landscape, at least even just back in, what was it, March. And to see where that's come, and I believe that's where Open Doors, I'm sure you can kind of agree with this, kind of where they come into the picture, is that having almost a level playing field and legitimizing maybe some of these things that were happening before these platforms stepped in and offered a landing page or a platform, for some of these deals to be created. Were there deals happening before you guys created this marketplace? Was this a way of kind of consolidating that and putting it all under one umbrella so that maybe it's more easily managed and oversaw?
Yeah, there was one athlete in particular who's now competing. He's using his grad year, did a grad transfer at another school down in Alabama, but he was a starting basketball player for us for a few years, all conference guy, who really had that entrepreneurial mentality, and he was out building his brand. And he has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and TikTok. He's got his own apparel that he's got a website for. He sells his own apparel and stuff. But he had deals with some pretty national level products. One of which was I think it was Body Armor, and there was some other things too. But he was kind of the one that really got the big push going for PLU athletics in that realm. But then we've had some folks following after, and that's where the platform comes in, is that it's a great system for us to be able to when our student athletes have something that's presented to them, they can submit it to us to review it, make sure it's all under proper compliance. The platform also gives them some education with some different videos. It grades out, kind of looks at their social media platforms and kind of says, here's how you can build your brand better if you did X, Y, and Z.
Okay,
and
interesting.
So some of our student athletes have come along since and have really taken advantage of those aspects.
Yeah, so now seeing that as almost a trailblazer, right? Seeing a student athlete go about it with that kind of mindset that you mentioned and really carve away, I'd imagine that after that, there were quite a few people like, well, shit, I didn't know we could do that, right? I didn't know this was really as attainable maybe. And yeah, you have to do a lot of work to gain that kind of following. There are a lot of people that try and do it. I'm trying to do it for this show and for this platform, right? There's so many people competing for only so many eyes and ears. And that's where it comes in, and that is where the value is in these followers and these different kind of metrics. What kind of common characteristics have you seen among your athletes that have generated some of these deals outside of, they have a lot of followers. What kind of characteristics have you seen from them?
Yeah, I mean, they've generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, it's somebody who's got an outgoing personality, somebody who's willing to put themselves out there.
For sure.
And I think that's important, because if you're going to do the type of style of going door to door in the Tacoma market, there's a lot of doors, and you've got to be willing to go do that. So to do that sort of work, you've got to have a resilient mentality. You've got to have this confidence, and that's great. I'll be honest, a lot of our athletes are not doing that sort of work. They're doing the things where there's opportunities that come forward that either get sent to me directly or through the platform. And it's, hey, if you meet these certain qualifications, apply for this thing, and you might make $50 for posting something on your Instagram account or putting out a TikTok or something along those lines. And so it's not as personality based. And then we've had, I think the first fall of really doing this thing with Open Doors, we had the first D3 autograph deal where we had somebody reach out to a volleyball athlete and wanted her to sign a volleyball. So they mailed the volleyball into the office. She signed it. She made whatever it was on it, sent the ball back.
That's pretty cool.
So it's those sort of things happen, you know?
Yeah.
And the more exposure our athletes can get, the more opportunities they can get to build their brand, whether it is with their social media accounts, what they're saying, what their videos are, what they're doing. I mean, that helps not only in the current NIL spectrum, but it also helps them when they move on. You know, when they graduate, they've already got an electronic platform there or a brand there where employers can go and look and really get a better idea about the person they're looking to hire.
That's big. Yeah, and I like how you touch on, the personalities are a big part of it, because that's how you usually generate a lot of that following is by doing something maybe a little bit different or doing something a little weird, and people enjoy that. They find some kind of entertainment value from it. But having those other metrics and things be the leading factor is interesting for me. So you've had people reach out, one, to you directly, and also two, through the platform, just kind of putting out feelers as to say like, hey, you know, help maybe you or just the platform in general be a middleman and help us find maybe the right person for what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, just recently, just this past week, there was some opportunities that came through, and it was, you know, if your followers on one of your platforms is this level, you're qualified. If you're from this state, you're qualified for this other thing. And
almost like scholarships, like looking through the list of all the scholarships for,
Yeah. And then on the flip side, we're an Under Armour school, as you can kind of see here.
Yep.
And we're one of the few out here in the Northwest. And so we had the opportunity when Under Armour wanted to do a photo shoot. Our sales rep came to us and said, hey, we need some athletes. We'd love to have some folks that come down and do a deal with us to do a photo shoot. And our quarterback / track athlete and a women's soccer athlete were selected. They went down for a couple days down to Portland and did a photo shoot. And now their image is in Under Armour retail shops all across North America and Central America. And, you know, so there's some of these really small things, and there's some things that are massive like that for some D3 schools like us, which is great.
I wanted to get around to that, man. I had that one waiting, and I'm glad that you just brought it up naturally. I love it. Like you took the freaking page out of my book. But that's so sweet, and it's surreal, I think. And when you look and just type in like a Google search, and you just type in, just doing my little research, like Pacific Lutheran NIL, and what's the first thing that pops up? Like 2 lutes featured in Under Armour photo shoot, and I'm like, wow, like really, like that's such a cool piece. And for those two, I believe one of the direct quotes was like, this is one of the greatest experiences of my life as far as it comes to athletics. Obviously there's other things outside, there's more to life than sports, but you know, these experiences that they create for people too, I'm sure is another part of the puzzle that is just often shoved under the rug. Like the fact that they're able to go do these things while they're in college, being a full-time student athlete, and have these experiences is got to be such a cool piece for you guys. So yeah, how did that, you touched on it a little bit, but how did that come about? It was just a matter of representation, it sounds like.
Yeah. So like I said, our sales rep reached out and he said, hey, we're looking I'm going to put you in contact with the marketing folks from Under Armour. They're looking to do a shootout on the West Coast up there in Portland, and they'd love to use some of your athletes. And they said that they'd send along some of the qualifications, some of the things that they need to see. And so I sent out an email blast to all the student athletes saying, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what the needs are. Here's what you have to submit, you know? And I think it was something like a couple different photos of them running or video of them running, you know, and maybe some other aspects too, just so the Under Armour folks could kind of see what this person might look like and envision them in their ads. And yeah, those things got submitted. They submitted them directly. You know, I don't have a role in that. All I can do is just say, here's the opportunity. I can't, you know, not allowed to broker any deals, not allowed to work on any payments or anything like that. So I just said, here you go. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I found out a few weeks after that they selected the two folks, Kiana and Darius. And yeah, they were down there and had a blast. And I think, Darius I think it may have led to a few other things for him after the fact. At least I think there was some conversations with maybe some other deals that might be spinning off of that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for him and for both of them. And when we talk about small school opportunities, I guarantee most people don't think, oh, photo shoot with Under Armour, but we were fortunate to have that.
Absolutely not. And I think shining light on the selection process, that's what I really wanted to hear about. And I'm glad you covered it, because for an outsider, maybe you think, yeah, Under Armour says we need a male athlete and a female athlete, right? And what is the athletic department just looking to come together and, sitting in this conference room where you're at and say, all right, guys, who are our two most photogenic student athletes on this campus? Like, who do we think? And I would have loved to have seen the room just been like, man, like, well, there's, so-and-so, yeah. No, that criteria is very interesting for me. So it was either photos or videos of them running, or is it participating in their sport? Was there anything to that consideration? Any kind of certain parameters with their given sport?
So I think that their actual marketing line, what they were trying to do was about running. And so it was just, they needed some folks who were athletic, someone who had good running form, someone who just would look good doing that piece.
Interesting.
But they weren't necessarily saying we need a football athlete or a women's soccer. But they said we'll need to have somebody who runs as like a primary part of their sport. So, we're not going to have any golf athletes for that one because they're not running around so it was, okay, what are we talking about here? And I think actually we had this deeper conversation. It was, soccer, basketball, track, football, cross country, those sort of things. We thought those ones had people in it that would primarily be running a lot during their sport, so they might have the best fortune finding somebody that they wanted to have in their shoot. So so we put it out there and got what we got. So yeah, I'm never going to be in a room trying to figure out who's the most photogenic. That is not as
It'd be a tough meeting, man. That'd be tough.
I know.
I love it. And that's just cool to see the kind of the criteria that goes into that. Obviously, I've worked with our marketing department here and some other outside freelance photo and video. So obviously worked on the other side of that. I've seen what goes into trying to acquire talent and when you have certain parameters for those kind of things. But obviously, like, I've never worked for Under Armour's marketing team. I don't know what goes into those kind of meetings and those decisions. So it is interesting to see that. But to close it off, I mean, talk about the next steps for you guys. How does this platform continue to grow and evolve over there?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a very competitive person. I always want to win in everything we do, and that means I want our athletes to win in the classroom, to win on the fields, win in NIL, and so we always want to make sure we're always on the front edge of the next thing down the road. And so I've kept my eyes open, talking with our partners at Open Doors. They're offering some different pieces on their platform that we've been talking through about if it's something that we think we can take advantage of or not. We recently signed a brand licensing deal and kind of working through some avenues with that as well, that we'll be making, I think, an announcement here in the next few weeks about a really cool NIL opportunity for all of our student athletes. So when it comes down to it is, we believe what we're doing is to best support the entire student athlete experience. And if you don't do that in NIL, you're missing one of those facets. And so I encourage all my colleagues, get involved, do what you can to support your student athletes as you would in every other area. And that's just what we're doing too. And we're just trying to make sure we're paying attention and always looking for that next great thing.
Well said. Appreciate you coming on here, breaking it down. Answered all my questions, man. That was really neat and something that we haven't had a chance to talk about a lot. And by the way, I think you're the first AD to come on the show.
Wow.
Yeah, that's got to count for something. I don't know if that makes you feel any different or.
Well, I've set the bar at a certain level down here. So your next AD.
No. That's good. But no, I'm happy about that. It's good to get different perspectives. We hear from a lot of different coaches and players specifically, and to hear from someone who potentially is a little bit more detached from that scene, still talking about things that affect these athletes at every single level of whether it is football, which we obviously focus on a lot, or some of these other sports, both male and female. It's great to get the insight from you, Mike. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much, man. Have a good night. I appreciate you hopping on here.
Absolutely. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. See ya. Appreciate Mike joining us here tonight. And we're going to wrap things up here, Trev, with some small school products landing on UFL rosters. That's United Football League, correct?
Yes.
And, we touched on it in the opener. The XFL, the USFL, they merge. And what I actually really like, and what they did, Trev, I don't know if you saw this, the champions from last year's XFL and USFL leagues are going to play the opening kickoff for the inaugural season of the UFL. Excuse me. So that's I believe it's the Battlehawks and Stallions. I know Birmingham Stallions win the USFL. I want to say it was the Battlehawks.
I believe it was the
because it was AJ McCarron that was balling out for him. So that's sweet. And they're basically saying, you're going to come watch this football. Let's try and give you the best football in week one so that we hopefully retain more people.
We were talking about this, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, and we mentioned the only way for them both to last is if they merged, and they did that.
We got some brains on us. So do they.
I mean,
it's common sense though. You can't compete. The spring football market is only going to attract so many eyes, and common sense would say when there are two different entities drawing from the same pool, you're only going to get half.
Yeah,
because your product is not that much different.
In my opinion on it felt like the USFL was struggling a lot more than the XFL.
Agreed. And a part of that was the ownership.
To the whole having one location.
Yes.
That was really
Which is probably a cost-saving piece for sure.
It was a cost-saving piece, but even watching the game, you're like, wow, there's 5 people at that game right now.
Because, so
there was no excitement to it.
No wonder in Birmingham Stallions won the league. It's in Alabama. It's in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, it was at UAB Stadium, I believe.
So, yes, I agree with that. I think another piece of it was the rules. The XFL entices people with a little bit of a new... It's like if Doritos released a new flavor. You know what you're eating, but...
It's just a little different.
It's just something a little different. You might like it. You might not.
And I think it's good to see these new rules that they're doing. Because it could maybe
permeate to the NFL.
Maybe.
The NFL is watching it with interest because why, if a new proposed rule is going to crash and burn in this league, oh shit, well that saves us.
Yeah.
Any more conversation?
I'm surprised the NFL didn't want to partner with them too.
And maybe that's coming down the line. Now that the merger is enacted.
Why make them a competition? Why make them competitors when just buy them?
That's what the NFL does best too. And I don't know shit, but I guarantee something has already been in the works to just take over the whole deal.
Yeah, and then it could be a feeder league.
Because eventually that's what these guys want to do, right? For most of them, the UFL is not the end goal for these athletes.
No, they don't make enough money there to begin with.
So a couple just kind of notes on this. Training camp begins for the UFL on February 24th in Arlington. And then we'll see all 8 league teams bring 75 players to camp before rosters are paired down to 50 before the regular season starts on March 30th. So there's some good numbers, dates for you. And when we go through here, there are players from D3, D2, NAI on every single team, I do believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so all 8 teams have small school football players on it. Pretty sweet, man. There wasn't one team that was like, nah, we're going to ruin the graphic.
Hey, I just was looking at some things, but I was looking on Google about the UFL. The UFL estimated player how much their salary is every year. It's gonna be $97,000 is their average. That's the median.
Yeah,
which is much better than it was prior.
I think so, definitely. And now it would be interesting to see because I know depending on the league, they were taking care of housing and meals and some other things. I wonder if that's included as a part of that
But $97,000 at least it's these guys are making an actual good living.
Yeah, legit.
They're actually making good money.
Yeah, that is. And you think, like you said, there's going to be guys in the higher end of that.
Yeah, I don't know what the minimum is. It could be $20,000.
You're not going to see some kind of multi-year $1 million deals, but you could definitely have guys making $200,000. You saw the quarterbacks, some of these squads, these guys will be making bank for sure. Yeah. Definitely triple figure or 6-figure guys. Excuse me, triple figures. That'd be bad. But when you look at the list here, I'm not going to go through all the names because there's 40 guys, dude. I'm not going to go through every single name of the guys that made it. I'll highlight a few that we've had on the show, which is pretty sweet. There are around 40 guys from D2, D3, NAI rosters. Awesome. 27 from Division 2. I counted 37. I think actually Marquette King technically was from Fort Valley State. So I should have put him on here too, the punter.
Oh,
He's
really?
in this too, I think.
I didn't realize he was a D2 guy.
Yeah, Fort Valley State. So there you go.
I understand that.
Yeah,
you just said that.
But out of these guys that I had, there was 27 out of Division 2, 6 out of Division 3, and 4 out of NAI. So D2 represent, man. That's pretty
That's
cool.
sweet.
Talk about some of the highlights here. As far as guys that we've had on the show, which is sweet. Trey Botts, the defensive tackle from Colorado State Pueblo, who got a chance with the Ravens. He was UDFA and went over to Baltimore for a little bit. Glad to see he's getting another chance. We had him on. He was a great guy. One of our favorite guests that we've had, Chim Okorafor, the offensive tackle from Benedictine. He's one of the 4 NAIA guys to represent in this league. Super excited for Chim. He obviously spent some time with the Eagles, and now as a bounce back is in the UFL. And another one, Jay Clava, the defensive end from Grand Valley State, who we had on the show. It feels like forever ago, man. But trust me when I say, like, I remember every single guy that comes on here. And so when I'm scrolling through and I see a couple of these names, like, it warms my heart. Like, that's really cool.
Sweet,
and we'll get more of these guys on here for sure as we continue. We got a long off season with a lot of different guys.
We do have a long off season.
But look at some of these squads on here. And a couple GLIAC guys, by the way. Hollow is one of them. Dennis Johnson, defensive tackle from Grand Valley, is on there. And then you also had a couple guys from Saginaw. Richard Bowens, the third from Saginaw, is a corner. So a couple corners from Sag playing.
I saw that,
professional ball.
I believe there's a running back from Sag.
There is also a running back, yes. And I'm totally blanking on his name. It's Nate McCrary.
Yeah,
who was obviously a stud.
Yeah,
I remember he was a stud for sure. A couple of Ferris guys as well, defensive line and corner from Ferris, and Austin Edwards and Alex Thomas. So GLIAC, at least the upper kind of tier of the GLIAC, is well represented in this list. Have gotten a lot of pro representation. I think to kind of get off that a little bit, we talk GLIAC specifically, that goes back to the pro representation you have in the GLIAC. And Grand Valley for years has done a pro day at the end of each season. And they've had the talent too. They've won so many games that, you're going to get eyes on your guys when you win those kind of games. But now Saginaw Valley is also doing their own pro day.
They've done that the past couple of years.
Yeah. So that was, I want to say they've done it for 2 or 3 years only. Like, it's still a recent new development. Yeah.
But they have the facility for it.
They do. And they have the athletes. Like, you're seeing, and I really do believe, yes, you have to be a fantastic athlete and get in front of whatever to make it to the next level. But if you don't have the eyes on you, it doesn't matter who the hell you are. So
exactly.
For them to have these opportunities for their guys to go out and perform in front of a bunch of professional scouts, whether it be NFL, UFL, the freaking ZFL, they'll play. Like, if you you just need to get in front of those eyes. So the fact that the GLIAC has done that, I know there are other conferences that do that. I think the GLIAC is kind of at the front of the pack in terms of getting a lot of eyes and exposure on their guys. At these school-specific pro days, you see a lot of these small school guys get caught up in, having to drive 3 or 4 hours to a big Division I school. That's if they can even get in, right? Because if you're not A, at that school, or B, in that conference, you don't have a connection there. There's not a lot of leverage. So usually it's agents trying to get their guys into these pro days.
And then when you get to the pro day, you really have to show out, like,
to stand off the sheet, because nobody was expecting to be there. And what sucks is nobody's coming there for you.
Exactly.
You know
They're
what I
not
mean?
there for you. They're not like, oh, so-and-so from wherever is going to CMU. They're not looking for you. They're
Central Michigan, by the way, not Carnegie Mellon.
Sorry, Central Michigan University.
I realized it's very commonly referred to as CMU. It's
really?
by that area of the country, which is funny. But for us, CMU is.
I mean,
Central
the Midwest,
Michigan.
everyone knows CMU is Central
Absolutely.
Michigan. Even if you're not from Michigan, if you're from, like, the surrounding, they know what CMU is.
Isn't that funny, though?
That is funny. I didn't know that.
The Tartans, I believe. Like a little black dog.
Yeah, he's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. One of the highest academic institutions in the country.
I did know that.
Yeah. For what it's worth, the coach that came and recruited me to Carnegie, he was a dick.
Imagine if he's listening to this show right now.
He was such an ass. He comes in, myself and my quarterback at our school that, I had a 32 ACT, I have 4.0. Like, I had grades. Like, he came in and basically told the both of us, looked at our transcripts and was like, I don't know. You guys might be able to cut it at our school. Like, you might be able to. That's what you would have led the meeting off with. And we're like, why did you just call us out of class, buddy? Like, can I go back to algebra? I want to go back. No football was talked about in that meeting.
That's not a place I'd want to go.
No. So, interesting. I'm sure he's long gone. They got a great program over there. That's no shots at those guys. They have owned the President's Athletic Conference for a long time until this year when Grove City had their way with them. But back to the UFL a little bit.
After a little side tangent.
I'll just never forget that. It was a very weird experience. Otherwise, though, we've seen a couple guys on here. Mankato might be the only representation from the NSIC. Pittsburgh State is well represented on this list. Couple guys from Slippery Rock. 2 players, by the way. We got a corner and I believe a wide receiver, if I do remember correctly, that were from Mary Hardin Baylor out of Division III.
Oh.
So pretty sweet representation there. And then there was a cool story here. Jake Lucina is an offensive lineman out of Augustana, the Division II squad in South Dakota. On the website, he was actually listed as an assistant offensive line coach. So seemingly had kind of moved on from his playing career and stuck around with the Augies or Vikings or whatever to help out and coach their offensive line unit, and now is taking the step back to play in the pros and pursue a dream, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
And I'm sure a guy like that he was probably in shape still to be ready to play.
Oh, hell yeah. Probably out at practice every day. I'm going to double check real quick, but I know on the website, because I try and there's a lot of names, but I try and do a little bit of fact checking for all these guys to make sure they're on the actual rosters and so on and so forth. And it looks like he also played in the USFL, and he was drafted in 2022 in round 20 of the USFL draft.
Round 20.
Round 20.
I didn't know.
That's crazy. Apparently played 10 games in the USFL. So I'd imagine out of college, gets the chance in the USFL, maybe something doesn't work out, or he just finishes and don't know what his future looks like. Hey, the fallback, I'm going to start coaching. Get the career going.
Yeah.
UFL comes calling. We're back, baby. We are so back. That's cool.
It's pretty sweet.
That's really cool.
Wasn't there another coach?
Yes, from Fort Lewis.
Fort
the wide
Lewis,
receivers coach who is back and playing some
I
ball.
thought there was a line coach too.
Wingate. You're talking about the offensive line coach from Wingate. Who played
and then for the Battlehawks, I think.
Renegades. Played for the Arlington Renegades.
2 blue teams. I got confused.
But yes, the offensive line coach, Brian something from Wingate, the Bulldogs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And, talk about finish up coaching and then to go in the offseason. I remember him putting out a tweet hey, guys, sorry, not on the recruiting trail right now. I'm competing for an XFL championship.
Well, could you have a bigger flex than that?
Yeah, dude. And imagine coming back for spring ball if he made it. I'm assuming he did.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know because spring ball is spring football.
Yeah.
That's weird. I don't know.
I wonder what happened.
I tried to get him on here before. I've talked to him a little bit. We'll see if we can do that. But imagine coming back and all right, what film are we watching, Coach? We're watching my film from last week. We are literally watching me.
This is what I do, and
is there a better way to teach people though?
I mean, you really can't argue that.
No.
This is what I did last week in my game.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm going to teach you guys.
Yeah.
And if I can do it, you guys
absolutely.
Can do it.
I can already hear it. And he comes in with LeBron, the 2 ice things on the knees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, man, if this technique works for me against probably some former Division I, you know what I mean, playing against him, and he's like, then you guys is good enough.
If I could do this against a 5-star recruit, you guys can do this.
This kid could be my son. I don't know how old he is.
I
think it's Brian Folkerts.
Kobe's about to message him right now.
Brian Folkerts played college football at Washburn, and he's looks like tight ends and fullbacks coach now at Wingate. But yeah, that's him.
Guess what? You know
Pretty
what
cool.
tight ends and
Spent 6 years in the NFL.
Wow. You know what tight ends and fullbacks do though? They block too, so he can still pull up his film.
Hell of a lot of blocking. Yeah, I do believe he was playing center. But
cool.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That'd be
He
cool
was the Battlehawks. It was the Battlehawks. I was wrong. I was wrong.
You got confused.
I did. 2 blues. It was the Battlehawks. Man, he played for the San Antonio Commanders in the Arena. The AAF.
Arena.
Is that Arena League? That's AFL. I don't know, bro.
I don't know.
I don't freaking know. But
I don't think it exists anymore.
No. That's about all we had for today, though. Pretty cool stuff. We're going to get some of those guys from the UFL or some of those new additions to those UFL rosters on. I'm excited for those guys. Very cool. Thanks, Trev.
Yep.